oh maybe, you like my easy smile. And maybe, oh maybe, we'll stop for a little while. And maybe, oh maybe, I'll ask if you like tea. And maybe, oh maybe, you'll have a cup with me. And maybe we don't, and decide to take a walk. And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Ponder While We Wander is so grateful for our first community sponsorship. A big shout out to Pine Tree Market, run by Michael and Katie Henderson, and their lodging support for us during our stay in Yosemite National Park. We're so grateful not only for their support, but their excitement in helping us share all things ecopsychology to a wider audience. If you ever find yourself in Wawona, California, make sure to swing by Pine Tree Market, your corner market, while you're in Wawona, and say hi for us. Sam the cat would love some pets as well. He's always at the ready to greet his human friends.
And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Hey, Amber.
Hi, Natasha.
Here we are.
Here we are.
We did a little bit of the wandering first, so that we could actually focus on footsteps.
Yeah, it's really beautiful where we are right now in the Yosemite Valley. There's been some snow and it's starting to melt, so it's very like slushy, a little bit slidey kind of walk out to this fallen tree that we're sitting on right now.
And we're here in Wawona, California, which is also in the Yosemite National Forest, where we've been for a few days now. And this is the ancestral home of the Yosemite Indians and the Miwok tribe. And we are very grateful to be here on this sunny day, and it's a little wet. It's a little warm. The air is kind of warm today.
We've got that for a little bit of time before the sun dips and it gets real cold again.
Yeah, we got this time right now. Let's do this. As we greet this space, we could feel the wind coming in. Let's greet the wind as it comes around and take that in as a breath of hello. And feeling our feet on the floor and grateful for this ground that we are firmly planted on today. Welcoming ourselves into this space, as well as letting the space warm up to us. Letting it know that we're here as well. And we want to welcome you to Ponder While We Wander, where two friends who happen to be therapists go for a walk as we discuss relationships, nature, and meet life in the moment. Each episode is grounded in some aspect of ecopsychology, but can take us anywhere as we ponder while we wander. And you're welcome to come along. Yeah. Today's topic, we are doing kind of a ecotherapy spotlight of a few different kinds of ecotherapies today. And just give you some more in-depth. I know the episode on ecotherapy, we kind of did an overview of what that might look like, but here we wanted to take a few and just give you a little bit more of them and talk about them. And
Yeah, we're going to talk about a few different ones today. And we were preparing for this episode too. I was thinking about, again, like why might we be talking about this and what's important about it. And I'm always reminded of, our like continual need to sort of return to nature. There's a part for me when I think about it, it's like family, that's like home. And in some ways we've been what I might consider like estranged from it. That's with modernity or capitalism or maybe more like egocentric kind of ideologies. And so any kind of chance that we get to sort of reconnect or return home. And sometimes we need some support to do that and remember our way back. And so when I think of some of the ecotherapies, I think of, ways that we can kind of intentionally practice a returning or a reconnecting, and kind of reconnecting to ourselves, reconnecting to nature, a relative, our home, and how some of the therapies that we'll talk about today also can be helpful to have, a guide to help us do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tried to categorize some of these, and we think we found a category for the ones that we're going to talk about today, which are the ecotherapies you can do out in nature. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think a lot of them are going to fall under that. Mm-hmm. But hey, we tried.
Yeah,
we tried.
These might have a few more specific, like, we're going to be talking a little bit about ocean therapy, right? So you can imagine all the different places you might engage with that, or forest bathing, and how being in the forest might help with that. Not that we can't access some of these in other ways, but yeah, some good ones to kind of explore about therapies outside.
Therapies outside, and maybe even a little bit inside. We try. Mm-hmm. Would you like to start with one of yours?
Yeah, I was thinking about ocean therapy. For me, the ocean has always been a place that I have felt very drawn to. I also, grew up next to the bay and bodies of water in the Pacific Northwest and coastal areas. So I've always been really drawn to the water. But yeah, some things about ocean therapy that might be more specific is there's a few tenets to it. There's a component around sort of like a nervous system regulation part, maybe this idea of like blue mind, where it's like a calm and regulated state. You could think about the way that, reducing, tending to our nervous system regulation also can help like reduce cortisol, or being in the ocean can help do that. There's an element of ocean therapy that we might think of that has like a mindfulness component to it. So ways that I might access that if I was near the water is that repetitive kind of motion of the waves coming in and out, helping kind of ground or bring me to the present moment in something. Oftentimes there's a breeze, or sometimes you'll hear, seabirds or seagulls. It can kind of help, bring and ground into the present moment. For some of the different ways to access each eco or ocean therapy, there's also often like a physical immersion piece, right? Like you might be going into the sea or dipping your toes in a river or a lake, and it provides a really like rich sensory experience. If you're swimming in the salt water, it can help like reduce your muscle tension. And I think a lot about, shifting into different temperatures is one of those things that can also help kind of bring down our nervous system dysregulation. So a lot of times with ocean therapy, they'll be actually getting in a body of water part. I use a lot of ocean and water metaphors in my work with people. So there's also that kind of emotional release or healing that we can access through different metaphors of water, changing tides, or the ocean being vast and can hold lots and lots of things and feelings to be metabolized. So there's a lot of imagery or metaphor, and people might already be thinking of some of their own that they conjure up when they think about being near bodies of water. Mm-hmm. There can also be these elements of kind of activating like more of a flow state, which is a type of hyperfocus that can be really soothing. It's kind of like when you're perhaps doing something new that's like just hard enough that you have to really be kind of focused and paying attention, but still within your capacity to do. There can be this zone you enter around a flow state that is a soothing hyperfocus. And then, of course, this is like a nature-based connection, right? Like when we're outside in the ocean or in your water. It's continuing to foster that sense of like going home or returning or supporting that connection back to nature.
When I think of saltwater and the ocean, I think of our original human embodied home of the womb or the inside that amniotic fluid state. Yeah.
Yeah, the metaphors that come up around thinking of it.
Or just how our body kind of remembers that as well.
For sure.
Floating state. Being. So are those therapies ones that are guided? Are they individual? That
I think, surfing comes into something like that. I mean, some of them could be guided. I mean, I would definitely need a surf instructor if I was going to try to access, any kind of skill around surfing or being in the ocean and participating in that. I'm not saying that all surf instructors are also providing you an ecotherapy per se, but there are some ways that surfing connects to ocean therapy, earthing. So you could, get your sandals off and those toes in the sand and really feeling the texture and the sensation and grounding into that. Swimming, floating. I think that's reminding me of what you were saying about, our growing in the womb and this like remembering kind of place that we have.
I think just even being by the water, if you're at the ocean where the waves are crashing and there's the negative ions that are being created there, and the positive, healthy impact of that to our system.
Yeah. So I think there's lots of different ways that people can access that. And some might have more guides than others.
Yeah. Thank you. I think there's a lot of similarity in these therapies, and you'll probably hear a lot of the undertones of how to approach these therapies are similar. I think some of the similarities include that we are partnering with, or actually in times allowing other than human nature to be the therapist or the guide or the holder, the container for the therapy. And I'll talk a little bit about silvotherapy, forest bathing, and a couple other elements in there. So silvotherapy is a term that came up in around 1981 in Japan, and it was in backlash to kind of cities being the major living areas for human populations, and that the forests were being neglected or not being paid attention to. And so this form of silvotherapy or forest therapy came up, and is based on ancient Japanese practices of being in forests and walking in forest walking. And even then, people already knew that these practices were helpful practices. And it was later on in 1990 that more studies started to prop up as the population of Japan was starting to realize the negative effects of urbanization and we call them modernity, living modernity, right? The long hours, the disconnection maybe from culture or family, and stress and the environmental stresses of modernity. And so here began some studies based on these walks or these forest walks. And we've talked about this individual before, Dr. Ji Ling, who's a doctor in Japan, started seeing the effects of what was described as Shinrin Yoku, which is roughly translated as forest bathing, but it's not about taking a bath. It's rather being immersed in a forest-like environment. And a lot of the topics that were covered were really based on the interdependence and the interaction between trees and forested areas. And as we're sitting here in this forested area, looking around, we're actually in an area that had previously burned some. So we've got some trees here that are knocked down and have been burned, and then also some trees that have survived and are healthy. And yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about forest bathing when you're in a location like this right now. Mm-hmm. But we start to look at Shinrin Yoku, or forest bathing, or even silvotherapy. Silvotherapy being kind of the umbrella term for some of the stuff, as spiritual, energetic, and scientific. It's a combination of all of these things, whereas we can measure a lot of the effects of this, but it's also relational. It's relating and being able to have a deeper connection and fostering a deeper connection to the world around us. And it's more of a practice rather than one time, let's do it kind of thing as we're on vacation or as we have time, but rather being able to take elements of it, of the forest bathing or whatever activity you're doing, and then take it with you into your life to integrate it, and then to keep coming back. Every time you go do a forest bathing experience, whether it's with a guide or on your own, it's going to be different each time. In fact, if you have a forest bathing guide, they may tailor it to the group that you're with, or the time of season, or maybe whatever's coming up, or the weather. And so you can expect that it's going to be a different kind of experience each time. And so some of the things you might expect, or you might see, or might experience in a forest bathing experience would be things like slowing down intentionally and being able to wander or walk with curiosity. You may be asked as an invitation to tune into your senses and have a sensory experience. This actually does a lot. There's an interaction that happens between the trees and with humans and with the world around us. We are taken in some of the phytoscenes and terpenes and oxygen and those negative ions that the trees and the ground around us provide. And there's also a bacterium, Mycobacterium vaccae. It's also called the happiness bacterium. And it stimulates serotonin in humans, which is also known as the happiness hormone. Mm-hmm. So just being out there in that vicinity. Lots of times these forest baths are around 2 hours long. You want enough time for your mind and your body to settle into the experience and really be able to have that experience, but also to allow those chemicals to find you and to really be able to feel that in your body and have that happen. It's also a time where you can really deeply connect with some really profound sensory experiences, because there's so much going on in the natural environments in the forests that we cannot pay attention to it all. And so your senses are going to be really heightened. And there are different ways that you could go into a forest bathing experience and have some activities that are kind of curated to what you might be able to get from the experience. So if you're having maybe memory or focus issues, or maybe even some existential issues or sleep issues, These are all conditions that different kinds of forest therapy can help with. Even the ability to listen deeper to our own intuition. And so some of the activities that might be included in your forest bathing experience could be a sit spot, which is a time where you can sit in an area in relative calm and silence, and just noticing what's going on inside and out. And what's really interesting is if you sit in a location long enough, your presence may have disturbed the flora and fauna around you, more the fauna, the animals. But as you sit there and as you have a sense of calm and quiet, you start to notice that the animals might come back. You might start to see some changes, and more of that natural environment would become available to you. And even your own sense of being able to track and notice what's going on around, the longer you sit and the stiller you sit, and the more often you practice a sit spot. You can go to that same spot over and over again, and it'll never be the same. It's always going to be different. So that's one of the activities. These other activities fall under different kind of categories. There can be curative silvotherapies, something like you're trying to cure something, maybe an insomnia or a focus issue, or maybe a creative silvotherapy. There are culinary silvotherapies, where you might be learning about some herbs or natural plants that are around the area, and even trying and tasting them and putting them together. There's recreational silvotherapy, which might even be considered a wilderness therapy, and energetic. And some of that is based on the energy meridians or chakras, or the way that energy flows through the body. And that could be incorporated into that as well. You may be asked and invited into doing things like hugging trees. You may be asked to do something really unique, like turn off your cell phone. Actually, that is probably one of the better things you can do, is turn off all your devices that would otherwise distract you. And then you can also have activities that would involve maybe aromatherapy, being able to smell the different kinds of herbs and plants around for different, they do have different medicinal purposes, and so you might find them very helpful with that. You may be asked to do something really strange and weird, like sit and communicate with a tree. And I say strange and weird not because it's wrong, but just because we don't do it naturally. But this is, again, that way of creating and opening a relationship up with other than human nature. And that normally there is a group that goes out, and that's really important, that we do this together, that we're not doing this individually. We're trying to get away from that individualism that maybe brought us here to modernity and the issues that we're having. And so going out with a group and then being able to have what's called a sharing circle at some point, maybe toward the end, where this is not like a therapy group. It's not a support system per se, although it could be, but this is just a time where we can practice deep listening and sharing our experiences. And even as other people talk, sometimes you realize that they have noticed similar things than you've noticed, or even different things that you didn't even notice when you were out there. Some of these therapies then can conclude with some nature art, like making nature mandalas, as a way to maybe leave something behind, a thank you for the experience. And then usually there's some kind of tea ceremony that happens. And if you have a forest bathing guide who has gone through and gone out there and harvested or procured some flora in some way that can make a tasty tea, and then sharing that as, again, part of the ritual, and coming back to togetherness of connection and intentionality. Maybe even part of that spirituality or energetic force. So it's kind of a broad category, this category of silvotherapy and Shinrin-yoku or forest bathing. But there are guides that are out there right now. There are several national and international associations, and local areas have practitioners that are often offering these things. It doesn't always have to be in a forest. It can be in a local garden. I know in Los Angeles, the LA County Arboretum has some forest bathing guides who come in and do those regularly. It can be done in any kind of weather, but usually you'll see them pop up more when the weather gets a little bit nicer, or maybe not just nicer. I like this weather. This weather's pretty nice, but all kinds of weather can be nice. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, that's a little bit of an overview of what that might be and what you might expect.
Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. That was really helpful to hear, and hopefully our people listening have more understanding about forest bathing. A couple of the things that I always think about with the forest bathing is that relational part that you're talking about, right? It's like, it's being open to kind of giving and receiving, not necessarily feeling like you're having to like force an agenda, but it is really in the spirit of like dialogue and conversation and relationship and reciprocity. I think the tea ceremony is a beautiful way to kind of do that, or the nature art that you were mentioning. It's like a way to acknowledge what you've perhaps been given in your experience and what you might be offering back, to really sort of center that reciprocity and relationality here, which I think is really important with forest bathing.
Yeah. Do you have another therapy that you were thinking of sharing today?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one that's perhaps on a little different side of the forest bathing might be something more like wilderness therapy, which might have some more of the tenets that we would think of maybe some things you're working on in more traditional therapy. But that one, can be, it has a tendency to be, fairly structured. And oftentimes there is some like intentional clinical or mental health staff or support that's a part of a wilderness therapy group or experience or camp, or, you might have a tendency to stay there longer. You're working a lot on, kind of learning new skills and increasing like self-efficacy and, rock climbing, building shelters, hiking, camping, lots of problem-solving elements to that. Maybe learning how to start a fire, that takes a lot of problem solving. I don't know, we've been doing lots of fires this week, and just when we're like, oh yeah, this is no big deal, the wood's like, not today.
In fireplaces. We've been doing it. We've been starting a lot of fires.
Safely, of course, in fireplaces.
And even when you try sometimes, right? Like there's an art and a science to building.
And even if you know how, even if you've done it before, sometimes you're having to do some problem solving along the way, and how to tolerate that at different times. Right? There's usually a group dynamic, so you're working in groups. So you could be learning about yourself in relationship to groups, what it's like to work together towards a common goal, what it is to help each other, what it is to notice our, interdependence again. If you are going on a hiking excursion or camping with a group, each person might have one or two pieces of the equipment that you need, and you want to make sure your whole group gets there so you can have everything you need to camp. So, but it's a really, I think it can be really helpful as a pretty firm container around it a lot of times. And you're working on kind of some specific things, or maybe with specific groups working through difficult experiences or places where, bigger experiences of trauma need a lot of support to be held. So wilderness therapy can be one of the places that can happen.
I want to touch on one of the kind of historical shadows of wilderness therapy, which is, back in the maybe 90s or even up till the 2000s, there have been some wilderness therapies that were marketed towards teenagers and families that were kind of in need, and those, although we're talking about a label of being the same thing, I would say that some of those were actually more traumatic on individuals than they were therapeutic. And so, coming back to some of the things we're talking about, is the therapy in the best interest? Is it, have we done an assessment of if this is an appropriate therapy for the situation? And is it going to cause more harm to the individual or the family or or nature? Is it going to harm the environment? Like, these are all things that we want to take a look at before we decide this is an actual legitimate therapy. And I have had several people in my practice as clients who have had really traumatic experiences in the past with wilderness therapy. And so we are not talking about those kinds of practices. And I just want to acknowledge that and acknowledge them for being able to discern that and do the work that they should have never been in those positions in the first place to have to work through.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely not, promoting and supporting that type of wilderness therapy.
Was walk and talk therapy one of those that you wanted to put in there with?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, walk and talk, which is, it's kind of like take your therapy outside in a sense, right? There's a few different things that can be helpful about that. I think of that example that maybe people have thought about or maybe experienced themselves when you're kind of driving in the car with someone and you're sort of in this more like side-by-side position, that sometimes it can be easier to talk about things, or it's not, you're not necessarily face-to-face as you're sharing about something that can kind of maybe make it easier to go into difficult experiences. So, walk and talk can kind of have a similar side-by-side element to it. I think it can also sort of help balance some of the power dynamics that kind of will show up in traditional talk therapy or therapy that's inside. So, be a little bit more like egalitarian and doing it together in a sense if you're both walking. There's a bilateral integration piece, which we know is, really helpful for processing trauma, the sort of ways that the left and right brains talk together. So we even have, that's happening when you're walking or swinging your arms. And so walk and talk therapy can have that element to it. And I think it can be really sort of adaptable and flexible for maybe people that are maybe not feeling so open to sitting in a room, or that doesn't quite work for them, like being able to kind of have other ways to access support by going outside and walking can be a really beautiful avenue for people into therapy. So those are a few of the things that I think of with walk and talk therapy.
Go ahead.
Just a little caveat to that, right? If you are a therapist or thinking about that, there are different things to consider about consent and making sure everybody knows you're going on a walk that day and wants to go on a walk that day, and what the kind of container is for that, because there are some different elements to it. So, like surprise walk and talks, like you want to make sure everybody's on board for that.
Right. Again, that assessment's pretty important, and then being able to, it can be a very different kind of experience, especially when you're talking about confidentiality and you're out in a suburban area or an urban area trying to walk. But when you're in a park, might have a little bit more space where that can open up a little bit. But even the realization as a therapist, as I became a therapist, I realized that it is a more sedentary job than the office jobs I had, which is crazy to think about, but absolutely true. It can be. So even getting myself to walk out there and walk with people sometimes. And I think there's a spectrum of walk and talk therapy as well, where it could be like a traditional therapy session. You're just walking and talking and doing it, and getting some of the benefits of walking and being in the elements. But then there's also the kind of walk and talk therapy where, again, you bring in nature and nature becomes the therapist, and the therapist is just there to help hold that container, reflect some things back, and be there. What tends to happen is there are some synchronicities, some things that happen as we're talking, and maybe a leaf falls, or your eye catches something. You can't always focus on everything all the time. So what is it that's drawing your attention? And again, using those metaphors in there as maybe a landing point or a jumping off point for making some insights. So yeah, walk and talk therapy. I love it. Yeah, there's another practice that I think can go alongside any of these, and it's keeping a nature diary. And I think, like I said before, these therapies, it's just like talk therapy, psychotherapy, or it's like if you're going to start a workout program, right? It's not a one-time thing. You're building over time. You're able to kind of deepen over time or gain more insight over time. And so coming back and making it a practice is probably more important than what therapy you're doing. And a nature diary might be a good way to track what it is that you've tried, what came up for you, your thoughts. You might even draw some pictures or take some pictures and put them in your diary of places or things that are inspiring to you. Maybe it's a quote that you come across, or maybe you've done that contemplation exercise where you've settled and you've quieted for quite a while and you've come back and there are some big thoughts or complex thoughts or more ponderings or questions that you have that you can keep in your nature diary. So consider that if you're going to consider any or all of these nature therapies. Yeah. So I guess that's my ponder point. I'm going to leave that there. Do you have a ponder point?
A ponder point. What would be my ponder point for today? I don't know. I don't have one that's springing to mind. I think, I like the one that you ended with. So maybe we'll just go with that one for today.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I don't even know what our next episode is. We're just going to say that there will be one, and keep subscribe. That's why you would want to subscribe, so that you will find out what the next episode would be.
Yes. Right. So until then,
wander well. Great hawk noise in the background there.
I forgot to mention that click, 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 because that tree branches, people will probably hear that tapping in the background.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here. But the sun is coming down and we've got a ways to walk here. So maybe we should start walking back. You want to keep this rolling as we walk back?
Sure.
Pocket. It's just like this light is amazing.
No, it's really bright and sunny and beautiful today.
And the trees that have been burned versus the trees that have not been burned. The grass that's peeking out from the snow. And Wawona Dome. It's probably not the best picture of Wawona Dome. Not doing you justice there. Okay. This one? Is this the path?
I think so. Looks pathy.
Is that the snowshoe path over there?
That one right there?
Yeah, right next to us.
I don't know.
This
Maybe. The path that we're looking for.
I don't know if it's an animal of humankind or animal of other kind.
I can't tell. It's a little human. It's like,
These look like pole. Oh. Can't they walk back with a stick?
oh, that makes sense.
Woof, woof. Oh my goodness.
Log.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to walk and do that.
No, definitely not.
Oh. Log. Did you find a bone picker? Did you hear it?
I did not hear it.
I thought it was backside behind you guys.
I didn't hear it. No. Of what? Oh.
There is a
I'm gonna shut
piece
these
of
off.
bark that was clicking on the tree. Might have been that. That was right by us.
I'm gonna turn these off.
I checked our thing. You're exactly on the trail.
Oh.
Talked longer than we normally talk in these things, just by knowing how far we've walked. But I have no gauge of like how long it's been, which is really interesting. When I'm out here in this space.
It happens to me a lot when I'm in the water or
Oh
by
yeah,
the water.
especially.
I really think it changes the time dimension.
Yeah, we should talk about that more. Well, any ponder points that you would like to move beyond?
Well, I guess I kind of just mentioned that, and I think I'll just repeat that. It's like, I'm realizing that was kind of my ponder point when I said it, but yeah, what can you notice about that?
Yeah.
And does the noticing of that shift it for you or not? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm inviting you to be curious about what your experience is.
And I'm going to leave a ponder point of if you are a person who is getting ready to or has prescribed nature, I'm going to invite you to step back from that part that makes you maybe the expert in prescribing things and then turn that back to yourself. Like really, really look at what is in your grab bag of ways that you incorporate this stuff. And then also think about how you would build an assessment for people to find their way to their own nature prescription. And for those of you who are looking to self-prescribe nature, right, to do the same thing, really take an assessment and just slow that process down and find different ways. Hopefully we planted some of the seeds that can help you take off, but yeah, let's talk more about what that can look like.
Can you hear that bird?
I can. What is that one?
I hope it chirps again as the car goes by. But
That one?
that one.
It's really beautiful. There's a bunch of them over there. Okay, and the next episode that we have coming up is going to be about forest bathing, and we're still going to be here in Yosemite National Forest. So look forward to that one, because that is one of the ones that you can do, and a lot of more people are becoming forest bathing practitioners. So, yay.
Until then, Natasha,
Wander well.